All right, what's up, everybody? Chris Meyer here from Broad Street Hockey, breaking down Flyers Blue Jackets, a 5-3 win. Really good game, honestly. A kind of a perfect road game for the Flyers. A lot of good moments. I think just bang my elbow. I think the biggest thing from this one, and on socials, I was kind of talking about a couple different things, kind of some pregame thoughts, and for me, I think the biggest thing from this one was the fact that the Flyers had the lead and didn't blow it, because you saw the past couple of games where they had some leads and had a really good month of November, and they really kind of just it really felt like they were just coming together as a team. I thought as the games were kind of progressing, as everything was going, like October was pretty bad for this team. You saw November, kind of how everything was going. It was like, all right, you got a couple days off. They put, didn't play from November 30th to the 5th of December. And like, all right, you get a couple days off, some days of rest. Guys can meet, guys who maybe banged up can kind of come back, things like that. And that game against Florida, it's like back and forth, for the later stages of it. The Flyers are getting killed in the first part of it. And it's like, oh my God, you're down 3-0. It's 3-2. It's 4-2. You tie it. You have a lead for a little bit. They lose that game 7-5. It's like, all right. Then you go to Boston, and it's like you already beat Boston this year. You went into that building. Both games were shutouts. In the other two, that was the third and final meeting of the season for Boston. And leads of 1-0, 2-0. Both goals from Matvei Michkov. In the first period, 3-1 after the second period. You lose that game in overtime, and it's like, all right. And then Utah the other night was like down, and then as soon as the Flyers tied it, the goal was given right back up, and kind of vice versa. And it was just one of those games where it just felt like a loss from really the start of it on. And then you had tonight, and tonight was one of those ones where it was like you had those three games, you had, uh, it just felt like one of them games where the Flyers want to see themselves as like a playoff team, and a team that could probably push for a playoff spot, and a team that definitely could be in the mix late in the season. That's a game you got to win, 100%. Erson is starting, right? First of all, Columbus hasn't necessarily been like a great team this year. Essentially the exact same record as the Flyers going into this one. I think it was one overtime game less or something like that. I think they had one less game played in terms of the records, but first period in this one, I mean, it was really all Flyers. A 2-0 lead after one. Goals from 𝙏𝙒𝙄𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙏 and Tippett. Tippett, that's his fifth in 5 games. He's really come along and started to play well. I think the biggest thing for Tippett, and I did the breakdown video on it, was getting space. And when Tippett had space, he could score. And you saw it. He had space on this goal. In Florida, he made space for him, or the game against Florida, he made space for himself. When Tippett has the space and he has the chances, he will score. And he's just too good of a player to struggle for that long and not score. As for Travis Konecny in the second period, he gets on the board. That's his 14th of the season. Michkov, that would be a 5-game point streak. His 6th point. He had another point in this one in the third. So that was, what's that, 7 points in 5 games for Michkov, something like that. He's been great. I mean, to have Konecny get on the board with the power play there. He would get another one. That was a great pass from Farabee, but like it was just simple things in this one. I thought it was one of them ones where again, they haven't really played bad in this past, like I'd say month and a half. They've had a lot of good games and just good periods and things like that. I know the second period's been a struggle. It was good to see them kind of just finish this one out. And like they haven't really had a game either in a while where they've just like essentially just had the lead for a long time and kept it. You know what I mean? Like they've just really had some really good, just good periods in general. The first period in this one was good. Obviously, you get the goal early. Did the first couple of shots. They didn't really, give the Jackets much of anything. Cates would get on the board. And then Tippett a couple minutes later, like I mentioned, and then obviously, Konecny. So it's a 3-0 lead. Werenski would score on the power play. And that was one of those ones where I'm like, all right, there was a failed clear a little bit before that. I believe it was Hathaway. And the PK has had some moments. And one of the things that I looked at going into this one was take advantage of the power play opportunities, because Columbus was 30th in the league on the PK. And they didn't do that, unfortunately. The Flyers had, I believe, it was They they had one power play. They do get a power play goal in this one from Konecny. But some of the other power plays, they couldn't really generate much of anything. They didn't have the puck for a lot of them. But they did get the one in the second period, and then Werenski would score. And again, it's one of those ones where it's like you want to be able to hold the lead and just keep with it. And the next couple of shifts are obviously huge after a goal that you give up, because it's just one of them things where, like, if you give up a goal, like, you don't want to give up another goal. It's kind of common sense, you know what I mean? So when you're watching it, it's like, all right, well, they just scored. There's a couple minutes left in this period, about 5 minutes or so. It's like, let's just kind of, take the wind out of their sails and get another one. And that's exactly what the Flyers did. Konecny would score. It was a beautiful, beautiful pass from Farabee, who, Farabee's interesting because I think he's a guy that obviously is talked about a lot in terms of his play, and there's a big spotlight on him because he's one of the guys that's been here for a while, and he's kind of struggled to really kind of ramp up the production. Like, he, was stuck under 50 points last year, had a really pretty brutal second half of the season, and he's been a guy that's been in trade rumors for maybe 3 years now, 4 years now, maybe. He's kind of been talked about a lot in terms of, could they move him? Is he involved in a package of some sort? Like, there's all those, little different things. And, he gets that goal the other night against Utah. It's a slam dunk, but sometimes that's just kind of how it is. Like, it sat there right in front of him. There's no way he was missing that. I criticized Farabee a little bit because I thought there were times where it was just like he had so many chances from breakaways in overtime. He had the one. He had a breakaway in overtime in Florida last month. He had the one in Boston. He's had 2-on-1 chances in St. Louis. Like, I'm just thinking, and these are just plays off the top of my head. Like, if I went back and looked at it, he's had chances galore for the past probably month and a half or so. And he's one of those guys that's just like, he tends to do it a lot. His shooting percentage is high. His shots on goal are high. He plays top line for a reason. Like, he does generate chances. He does. I don't think he's necessarily playing bad. It kind of reminds me of Konecny in 21-22 a little bit. A guy whose shooting percentage was high. His shots on goal was high. He got chances. He just didn't score. And that's kind of the thing with Farabee, is like, he's always been that kind of track record of a guy that just takes forever to get going in terms of points. And, he's doing that. I don't know if that goal is something that gives him a little bit of a boost. And then you have that, two-line pass to Konecny that sprung him for the breakaway. And he kind of made Merzlikins look foolish on that. But it's a really beautiful pass. And it set the Flyers up. Frost would score in the third period off of last game where he had the brutal turnover. And I've always been a Frost guy. I always have. I do think the biggest thing, I think, with the Flyers and the way that they've kind of been able to kind of structure their game is because they've been able to basically have set lines. And when you have a set lineup and when you have, just constant consistency, that's when you get the most consistency out of your guys. And that's, kind of obvious, right? But the Flyers, for the most part of the season, and really for Tortorella, he was, breaking up the lines and things like that. As for these past couple of weeks, you've had Tippett with Frost and 𝙏𝙗𝙗, you've had Cates with Forrester and Brink, you've had Farabee with Couturier and Konecny. The fourth line has basically been Paley, Lawn, and Hathaway. That's pretty much been their lineup for probably the past month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks-ish, right? So it's been good to see that. And really, I mean, you look at all three of those lines, Farabee, Couturier, Konecny, right? Coots has definitely, I think, played well, been very good in the face-off dot. Konecny's been probably the best player outside of 𝙏𝙗𝙗. Him and 𝙏𝙗𝙗 are just been the two big guns for the Flyers this year in terms of offense and things like that. I believe they're both 1 and 2 in points. As for that second line, Tippett, Frost, and 𝙏𝙗𝙗, they have chemistry. Obviously, Tippett has been able to really create some plays, with 𝙏𝙗𝙗 and the passing and all that. Frost, I think, is a good play driver in terms of being a centerman and using his skill and speed and all that as well. And, Forrester, Brink, and Cates, like, that line wins pucks. Like, Brink, for his credit, like, being that small and all that, like, he wins a ton of puck battles. That line sets up chances. That's why they got the goal in the first period. It was a play off the wall. Forrester made a little play. He looked like just a total ballerina off the wall, because he just, like, comes in, uses his edge work, gets off the wall, shoots it. ends up getting deflected in there by Cates at the side of the net. And it's just like, you got, scoring from all three of those lines. And all three of the lines have drove play and just played well throughout the season. Like throughout this past, again, like 2-3 weeks, probably a month, those guys have been like essentially your main guys that have stepped up. And it's been really good to see. In terms of the third, obviously Frost gets that one. 𝙏𝙗𝙏𝙏𝙏𝙏 gets another assist. That's 27 points on the season. He's been great. It's so refreshing to see. For me, I've essentially been watching this team since 12-13. A team that's been mediocre, a team that's been in and out of the playoffs and then in a rebuild. So to see a guy and see a skill set like that, it's been sick. If I'm being totally honest, it's a very bland word for it, but he's been so sick to watch. Just the skill set, the plays that he makes, all those things. Columbus will get 2-1s, Monahan and then Johnson. It's tough because I think Erson played a better game than probably what the scoreboard looks, and I think some of those goals were just like kind of weird deflections in front of the net too. But again, that was the other thing, was make it easy for Erson. That was one of my big things going into this one, and they did. I mean, Columbus had 4 shots in the first and then 7 in the second and third. Like, they didn't give them a ton of chances, a ton of opportunities, and the Flyers they essentially purely dominated them for most of this game. And it was just like a total overflow from the past couple of games. It was just good to see. I mean, to have a game where you essentially get killed in the face-off dot. Giveaways, Flyers had a lot of accredited giveaways in this one as well. But to have a game where you get a power play goal, you make it easy on your goaltender, you are able to generate offense, you have a lead and you don't blow it. Those are like the big things that you want, especially again against a team like the Blue Jackets that are lower than you, are a team that's struggling, or a team that's they're kind of just right there. You know what I mean? Like, they're not necessarily like, Columbus is tough to read because they could be one of those teams that like maybe shock somebody and they do get in. I don't think they will, but it definitely is something to watch. As of right now, that win did put the Flyers back in a playoff spot, second wildcard spot. They have 30 points in 29 games. They're 13-12-4. The Rangers and the Islanders are right there behind them with 29. Rangers have 2 games in hand. Islanders are the same amount of games played. And Pittsburgh is there, Columbus, a couple other teams as well in the Atlantic. But it's definitely a good win. They're tied right now for the first wildcard spot with Tampa Bay. And, I think it does go to show how good the Metro is too. Because if the Flyers were in the Atlantic, they'd only be 3 points out of third and only 6 out of second, and Carolina has 37. So, and they're in third. Like, the Caps are in first with 40, Devils right there at 39. So, like, it shows you how good the Metropolitan Division is too, and just like how different the East is. If you're looking at the West, like, I know it's so early to talk about things like this, but it's just one of them wins that just like it puts you right back up there. Vancouver, in the Pacific, they got 32 points, but they got a lot of less games played too. So it's just one of them things that you look at. It's like, damn, like the Metro was that good, and it shows how hard it is too. But like again, interdivision points are huge, and that's one of the bigger takeaways from this one for the Flyers, especially if you're wanting them to make the playoffs, trying to see them in a playoff spot, things like that. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just a really solid win that kind of caps off 3 pretty tough losses, especially in games that were kind of, you should have won, you should have had some more chances, and definitely could have had more points out of those two. But hey, that is what it is. Big win tonight. Thanks everybody again for all the support. Make sure to check out Broad Street Hockey and all the great stuff that we do on all social media, Twitter, and our YouTube are right here on the screen. Obviously TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. Obviously check out the website and everything too. A lot of good stuff. So thanks everybody again. Talk to you guys all again next time. See you guys.